Hello, class. I'm going to be talking about the weapons of World War II between 1939 and 1945. For this PowerPoint, I just want to make sure that you guys are going to be taking notes. Also, write down important facts and concepts that I or the presentation mentions. Remember, I gave you a worksheet. Please fill that out because I will be checking it tomorrow. So, in World War II, just for a brief summary, there were 60 million deaths and several whole cities were destroyed. So when it comes to deaths, as you look at this graph over here, most of it was Allied civilians. So don't just think of Americans, think of also the French, the British, the Soviet Union as well. There was Allied military, Axis military, and Axis civilians. If you remember the Axis powers, it was mostly Germany, Italy, and Japan. Designing new weapons and technology became essential in the war, so we have to remember that as we go through the slides. And also, all of these weapons have positives and negatives during the war. Not all weapons were good and not all weapons were bad. So we'll continue on. The first weapon I will go over is the M1 rifle. So it has a high rate of fire. It's an automatic weapon. It made ground warfare practical. It was great against enemy weaponry that were close ranged. So before I continue, I just want to say that an example of an M1 rifle is an M1 Garand. So it is an M1 rifle is just a broader concept of what a gun is, and then to narrow it down, an M1 Garand is the exact name of a rifle. The M1 Garand, for example, the US created that weapon, and it was created in around 1936, and it was used as a service rifle between 1936 and 1957. So that means everyone who was in the military would have that weapon. And then in the 1940s, several more countries started to get that weapon and use it in wars. So as you know, the 1940s, that is when World War II was. So that became one of the biggest infantry weapons that was used. George S. Patton, he was a U.S. military general, and he quotes about this weapon that it was the greatest battle implement ever devised. So you can see that one of the greatest military leaders that ever came to be from the U.S. really liked that weapon. So at the start of World War II, some people used bolt-action rifles. So it is a very slow-moving gun. It takes a while to reload. It has slow rates of fire. It was dated in the 1800s, so obviously it is not a weapon that would want to be used during a war like this. So infantry used to be weakly armed, but with this weapon, they were not anymore. Also, they gave a fighting chance against their enemies, so instead of them just running around and hoping not to die by getting bombed or getting shot from an airplane or anything like that, they actually had a chance to shoot like from far away. And also, I just want to say one last thing, that there's no match against a machine gun at close range. So a machine gun can shoot a lot of people in a close, like maybe from like 100 meters away, but a rifle can shoot from maybe 400 or even farther away, 400 meters away or farther. So that's a huge advantage, especially if you're at a high point, like in a building or in a tower of some sort. The next weapon I'll go over would be the M4 Sherman tank. In this picture, seeing a star on a tank means it's an Allied power, so just keep that in mind. It is easy and cheap to build. It is easy to repair. It had powerful guns mounted on the tank and weak against heavier tanks. So a few things about the Sherman tank to keep in mind is that the U.S. Created this tank Well, they designed it in 1940, but they started using it in 1942 to 1955. Several other countries still use the tank from 1945, and now they still use it, but not the United States. Um, it was a rushed into service type of weapon, so they wanted a lot of big military weapons really quickly. So it had a lot of negatives, but it did have a lot of positives as well. It was weak against Tigers and Panthers, which were German tanks. So they were big, powerful, but very hard to create, very expensive. But that is what the Sherman overpowered them with, is that there were a lot of them, but they were weak. It was nicknamed the Ronson, which is after cigarette brand lighter, which had a motto meaning lighting up first time every time. So to correlate this with the tank, it meant that if the tank ever got shot, it would just blow up instantly. They had no chance. It didn't have any sort of stability when it comes to that. Also, it was very quickly produced, like I said, so there was a lot of them. And also, it wasn't just used by the United States. The British and the Soviet Union also adapted this weapon. Guns on this tank were so powerful that it would be, how do I say this? The guns were so strong that the first thing that their enemies would do would shoot at the people manning those guns because they knew how strong they were. The next one I will go over is Katyusha rocket launcher. It is the Soviet Union's weapon. It is easily movable, mounted on the back of trucks like you see in this picture. It lacks in accuracy, and it is cheap and easy to construct. So those are a lot of good key points to know about the rocket launcher. It started being used in 1939, the start of the war, and then it is still used today. It can target one area more quickly than any other artillery. This is an artillery, and it is used to destroy bigger weapons, like maybe tanks or airplanes or anything like that. But they are low on accuracy, so it's harder for them to actually hit these planes down. And it takes a long time to reload. It is hard to tell, but you could see on the back of the truck how long that the rocket is by looking at the black stand. And you can only imagine how heavy and how hard it is to place it correctly and place it right, just right on that in order to hit the plane in the air. Also, since it's inexpensive and easy to produce, it was like the Sherman tank, produced a lot. And then it also helped defeat the Germans from invading Russia. The Germans had a plan to invade Russia and take it over, and this weapon was one of the main weapons that helped stop that. And also, it is very strong, and you have to remember that when it comes to rocket launchers or any powerful thing like that, because this can go against anything like infantry or anything like a ton of people in a building or anything like that. And if it does destroy its target, most likely that target will be incinerated completely. And the last weapon I'm going over is the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb, as you can see in this image, doesn't look that big, but it is very devastating. It can destroy entire cities. The United States was the only one to accomplish this weapon at this time, because they were the only country that had enough money to do so. As you can see, it was extremely expensive, and it was too complex to mass produce, so there weren't a lot of these. But An atomic bomb, or also known as the A-bomb, as you will probably see in textbooks or other readings, it is a nuclear weapon or a weapon of mass destruction, as you can only imagine what that looks like. It destroys whole cities, like I said, and there's a lot of controversy that is behind this bomb. The ethics of bombing is a popular debate, and it is a very controversial one even to this day. It is hard and expensive to make. The Manhattan Project was an example of how this atomic bomb came to be. The whole reason why this Manhattan Project started, it was because of the fear that Germany would produce one first and bomb Allied powers. But since USA was sustained enough economically, they made it first. In 1945, it was released on 2 Japanese cities. It was to do that in order to hurry and end the war, according to the Allies. So, as we continue, for class tomorrow, I want you to know that you have to be ready to debate. Use this PowerPoint as a source, make sure you have your notes, and don't forget to answer questions on your worksheet.